Over the years, as I've been doing my consulting assignments and talking to several clients, one thing which has come out common across several organizations is the concept of is the lack of big picture thinking. Now, different people word it differently. Some people say that my management team or my functional experts, they don't understand the outside world. Some of them say that they cannot connect the dots. Some of them say, they are siloed. Different words being used, but basically what one is saying is that they are unable to connect and understand the implications to the organization for anything that's happening, whether it be a political disturbance, whether it be an increase of raw material prices, whether it be the lack of availability of fuel, any such things. So and often I'm seeing these also being given the names of uncertainty, ambiguity, complexity, various jargons behind it. Question is, the world has always been changing. There's nothing new which is happening today. Yes, maybe the pace, due to the huge amount of information easily available, has really changed the way things work, or the speed at which things work. But the world has always been changing. There's nothing like stagnation, otherwise we wouldn't have come all the way from hunters to farmers. Yeah. Now, when I went across and studied this whole thing in depth and asked a lot of these general managers as well as business leaders as well as CEOs as to what do you mean by this big picture thinking, and when I try to decompose this whole thing into what it means, what I have seen is that there are 4 elements to it, or 4 dots to it. One is the deep understanding of the customer story. The second dot is the deep understanding of the organizational story. The third is a deep understanding of the financial story. And fourth is a deep understanding of the external and the industry story. Now, you can imagine that while this can be viewed as a forest with trees in between, this is the way I look at it, and so while someone has got a sight on a few of them, he might not necessarily have the sight on the other aspects of it. So this forest full of trees, which is clouded by the thinking of the individual and the perspectives that the individual has developed over the year, or the ability of the individual to comprehend the various things, stop this forest, or stop this visibility somewhere. Depends how big the forest is. In case the forest goes like this, and there are lots of trees in between, it doesn't have functional barriers. If people don't understand this whole thing, complexity barriers here. So it totally depends that how big and how's your forest in your organization. How does it look like? Ideally, the forest should be where the forests are, and all of these should have a clean view on each other. But why is it so difficult? When I have talked to some of the participants or the subordinates on whom the management has commented saying that they don't understand big picture, I have seen that they invest in stocks and shares with a deep understanding of the companies and their profiles. I have seen that they are managing their household very well. Now, household is not in debt. Household is progressing. There is cash flow, adequate cash flow for everything that they require. If you go back A few of them might have done some squandering on money on credit cards or something, but they know what they want. Some of them have insurance, adequate amount of insurance cover. So if you dive deep at a very individual level, there is no reason for this thing to happen, because individually they are well managed. Individually they have done the big picture thinking. But then as an organization, why don't they do big picture thinking? That is where the problem gets defined. Why do people who do big picture thinking for their own households don't do big picture thinking for the organization? The reasons are many. First and foremost is what I say is that lack of motivation. I have seen leaders discouraging big picture thinking by saying things like, you please focus on your job, do not bother on what's happening, we will do our part of it, the strategy cell will tell you what to do. So leaders constantly discourage big picture thinking, knowingly or unknowingly. So while so that's one bit of it. The second is functional silos. What is encouraged is excellence in functions. And in the early years of a career of an individual, and then what happens is that when this individual becomes a little more experienced, say 10 years, 12 years, they suddenly expect him to start developing big picture thinking skills. How would that happen? Over time, the big picture thinking capability has to be nurtured. So only when the big picture thinking capability is nurtured over years and over time does it grow into a natural way to think about it. And the last thing which I have seen is lack of interest among subordinates. There are definitely a group of subordinates who think big picture thinking is not their job and they've got nothing to do with it. So such people, they generally are not the ones who can do the big picture thinking. So therefore, if anyone does big picture thinking, it's not encouraged, or it's not it's not looked upon as a good thought. It's rather put down. These 2 or 3 things are fundamentally the reasons. Of course, most of the organizations I have seen, they do general management programs. They do expect their people to know the financial story, organizational story, customer story, and external industry story. But the internal ways and the internal means and practices do not support that. Or rather, the leadership behaviors have to be looked in. What I also saw is that, so if I try to do in a nutshell, what is big picture thinking? In a very simple way, having done in a marketing department, having done customer analysis, can someone point out segments where the presence is not there, and after finding out the segments where the capability is not there, then can someone do something about it? So what is this customer analysis all about? That's what is the first thing. Having done that, doing something about it, connecting it with the financials of the organization, developing new products, and then making a good financial story for the organization. Now when you put all of this together, that is big picture thinking. Can your organization always do big picture thinking? Can your different departments in the production department, can people think like this? Can people in the production department develop a big picture thinking around this, and what's the story about it? So these are few of the aspects. When they are looked upon completely, the big picture thinking evolves in an organization. It's very important to understand what is stopping big picture thinking in your organization and how can you encourage more and more of it, as well as make it happen.